On the night of the 3rd of October, 1922, a married couple walked home from a London theater to their house in Ilford, on the eastern edge of the city. Percy Thompson was 32 and worked as a shipping clerk in the city. His wife Edith was 28, and she was the manageress of a millinery firm, and she earned more than he did. About 100 yards from their own front door, a young man stepped out of the shadows behind them. He stabbed Percy Thompson several times and ran. Edith Thompson was standing next to her husband when it happened. She screamed for help. Neighbors came. A doctor was fetched. Percy Thompson was dead before he reached the pavement's edge. The young man was Frederick Bywaters. He was 20 years old. He was a ship's writer on a passenger liner, and he had lodged in that house. He had been Edith Thompson's lover for over a year, and he was 8 years younger than she was. He was arrested within days. He confessed almost immediately. And from that first statement to the last morning of his life, he said the same thing, consistently and without variation. He said he had done it alone, that it was not planned, and that Edith Thompson knew nothing about it. Police searched his ship's locker and found the letters, about 60 of them from her, over more than a year. She was an imaginative woman in a marriage she hated, and she wrote to him the way you write into a diary. In some of those letters, she wrote that she had put ground glass in her husband's food, that she had given him something, that she had tried. Percy Thompson's body was examined for poison and for glass. Nothing was found, not a trace of either. None of it was true. It was fantasy, written to a young man she was in love with. She was hanged for it in January of 1923. Ilford, East London. October 1922. A married woman of 28 who earned more than her husband. A 20-year-old who confessed on the first day and never named her. 60 letters, no poison found, no glass found. 2 people hanged on the same morning. If you are new here, this is Cold Case Redemption. This one is not a mystery. Everybody knew who did it within a week. The question this episode asks is why the woman standing beside him was hanged for it. Subscribe and stay with me. Edith Jessie Graydon was born in East London in 1893, the eldest of 5, into a respectable working family. She was clever and ambitious. She went into the millinery trade and rose fast. And by her mid-20s, she was managing a wholesale firm in the city. She was, in 1922, a woman with a career, a salary, and opinions. That is worth holding on to, because the court noticed all 3. She married Percy Thompson in 1916. He was a shipping clerk. It was, by every account from both families, not a happy marriage for long. They bought a house in Ilford. To pay for it, they took a lodger. Frederick Bywaters was a friend of Edith's younger brother. He went to sea at 15 and worked the P&O liners as a ship's writer. He was away for months at a time and back for weeks. He was 19 when he moved in. The affair began in the summer of 1921, on a family holiday on the Isle of Wight. When they came back, Percy Thompson found out. There was a violent row, and Bywaters was told to leave the house. He went back to sea, and Edith Thompson started writing. She wrote to him constantly for over a year, to ports all over the world, and he kept the letters in his locker on the ship. They are long, literate, and full of the novels she was reading. She sent him cuttings. She discussed plots with him. She wrote about poisonings in the books she was reading, and about characters who got rid of inconvenient husbands, and she wove herself into those stories. And then she wrote things about her own marriage that read, on paper, as confessions. That she had put something in his tea, that she had given him ground glass in his food and it had not worked, that she had tried again. His body was examined by a Home Office pathologist. There was no poison. There was no glass. There was no sign that anything of the kind had ever been done to him, which leaves 2 possibilities, and the whole case turns on which one you take. Either she had tried and comprehensively failed in ways that left no trace at all, or she was writing fiction to a young man she wanted to keep interested. She was a reader with an unhappy marriage, writing to a boy at sea, making herself the heroine of something. That is the argument her defenders have made for a century, and it has never been answered. They were tried together at the Old Bailey in December of 1922, before Mr. Justice Shearman. Trying them together was the decision that killed her, because it meant the jury heard the letters in the same room as the confessed stabbing. Bywaters gave evidence and repeated what he had said from the beginning. He had acted alone, on impulse, and she had known nothing. Her own counsel begged her not to give evidence. The case against her was made of paper, and she could only make it worse. She insisted. She went into the witness box and she was taken apart, line by line, using her own letters. The judge's summing up dwelt at length on the adultery. Reporters recorded it. Legal historians have been uncomfortable about it ever since. On the 11th of December, 1922, both were convicted of murder. Both were sentenced to death. A petition for Edith Thompson's reprieve gathered close to 1 million signatures. It was refused. On the 9th of January, 1923, both sentences were carried out at the same hour in 2 different prisons, about 4 miles apart. She was 29 years old. He was 20. What happened at Holloway that morning is documented, and it is not going into this video. What can be said is that the executioner involved resigned not long afterward, and that people who were present spoke about it for the rest of their lives. There was no forensic evidence connecting Edith Thompson to the killing. There was no witness who said she knew. There were the letters and nothing else. The conviction has been challenged continuously since. Legal writers, historians, and campaigners have argued for a posthumous pardon for 100 years. Her remains were reburied in a marked grave in 2018, after decades of campaigning, which is the only formal acknowledgement anybody has ever managed. So, what is honestly established? Frederick Bywaters killed Percy Thompson. He said so on the first day, and never changed it. Established. Edith Thompson wrote things in letters that, read cold, sound like a woman describing attempts on her husband's life. Not established then or since that she ever did any of it, or that she knew what Bywaters intended that night. Here is what I keep coming back to. Edith Thompson was tried in a country that had given women the vote 4 years earlier and had not decided what it thought about that. She was older than her lover. She earned more than her husband. She wrote frankly about what she wanted. Every one of those was used against her in that room. A man confessed to a killing and was believed about the killing and disbelieved about the only thing he ever asked anybody to accept. This case was closed in 1923 and has never settled. If this one stayed with you, share it, and tell me in the comments whether you would have convicted her. Subscribe to Cold Case Redemption. A new case every week. I will see you in the next one. End.